Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're tuning in because we have a truly fantastic breakdown lined up for you today. We are going to take a really close look at a classic piece of educational storytelling, straight out of an English reader textbook. Our goal? To deconstruct a story called A Little Sweet Girl Riya, which, you'll probably recognize as a very charming adaptation of a rather famous fairy tale. But look, we aren't just here to read a story. We're going to see exactly how this text brilliantly weaves together narrative structure, moral teaching, and targeted language building to capture a young learner's imagination. We are going to animate and explain the mechanics of this tale in detail.
So let's jump right in. Section 1, A Little Sweet Girl Riya. Let's set the scene.
You know, every great story needs a really solid foundation, right? You have to establish who you're following and what their normal world looks like before everything gets flipped upside down. The opening beats of this story introduce us to our protagonist, sweet little Riya, who lives in a village right near the edge of a forest. The text sets this incredibly warm, safe, and vibrant tone. One morning, Riya wants to visit her grandmother, and her mother says, "Good idea." So they pack up a nice little basket of gifts. It highlights all this domestic safety, the tidy cottage, the bright blue roof, and Riya in that iconic red cloak, just smiling as she kisses her mom goodbye. It's literally the perfect picture of innocence, and it sets the perfect baseline for the tension that is about to kick in.
Moving on to Section 2, The Forest Encounter.
Okay, so as our hero leaves the safety of her home and actually steps foot into the forest, the pacing shifts. We are leaving the known world and plunging straight into the wild. Now, before she left, Riya's mother was super explicit. Go straight to Granny's, and whatever you do not talk to strangers. But, well, Riya immediately gets distracted by the lovely flowers and fluttering butterflies. The text actually points out she forgot her promise to her mother. And then, suddenly, emerging from the roots of a giant tree, a wolf appears. But here's the brilliant choice the author makes. The wolf doesn't growl, he doesn't threaten her. Instead, he uses a friendly voice to ask what she's up to. Riya, caught completely off guard and way too trusting, just hands over her exact destination. It is the precarious, quiet moment of a trap being set.
Section 3. At Granny's cottage. The trap is sprung.
The narrative moves fast into the confrontation phase here. The tension really ratchets up as we swap the wide-open, distracting forest for the highly confined space of Granny's cottage. The wolf is fast, and he beats Riya to the house. And the textbook does not pull its punches. It clearly states that the wolf burst in and gobbled her up. He immediately sets his cunning plan into motion. He throws on a nightgown, pulls on a frilly cap, jumps into the bed, and yanks the covers right up to his chin. Just a few minutes later, Riya knocks. The wolf, fully committed to the bit, calls out in a thin, high voice, inviting her in. This is an absolute masterclass in dramatic irony for young readers. We know exactly what kind of monster is lurking under those covers, but sweet Riya is walking right into the danger zone.
Now, notice how the text expertly draws out the suspense, using dialogue. This is that iconic exchange we all remember. Riya cautiously steps up to the bed, and you can feel her realizing something is off. "Granny, you sound funny," she says. The wolf just brushes it off as a cold. Then she points out the big ears. "The better to hear you with, my dear," he says. She points out the big eyes. "The better to see you with." Finally, she questions those massive teeth. It's this agonizing, slow-dawning realization as she points her finger at this heavily disguised wolf who is awkwardly clutching the blanket and wearing Granny's glasses.
And boom, we hit the absolute climax of the story. The second she asks about the teeth, the wolf drops the entire act. "The better to eat you with, my dear," roared the wolf. He literally leaps out of the bed at her. The illusion is totally shattered, the friendly voice is gone, and the pure, wild threat is finally out in the open for everyone to see. But luckily, the story gives us a very swift, comforting resolution. As the wolf lunges, Riya turns and sprints out of the house, screaming, "Help! Wolf!" at the top of her lungs. Her desperate cries flag down a nearby woodsman who rushes in, grabs the wolf, and actually makes the beast spit poor Granny right back out. The defeated wolf bolts back into the deep forest, and a terrified but safe Riya promises she will never, ever stop in the forest or speak to strangers again. Section 4. The moral of the story. Let's dig into the pedagogical purpose. All right, now that we've ridden the roller coaster of that narrative, let's put our educator hats on. Why was this specific story engineered this way for a textbook? Well, it brilliantly uses contrast to teach cause and effect to young readers. Look at the setup. On one side, you have the mother's crystal clear instructions. Go straight to Granny's house and don't talk to strangers.
On the exact opposite side, you have Riya's actions, stopping to look at flowers, watching butterflies, and happily chatting up a wolf she just met. The entire terrifying ordeal is presented as the direct, undeniable consequence of breaking those two very specific rules.
So, the crucial point, which the textbook explicitly labels the value pick at the very end, is this: listen to warnings and think before you act. Every single plot point, from the distracting butterflies to the friendly-sounding wolf, was carefully engineered to drill home this exact value. It shows kids that actions have real consequences, and those warnings from trusted adults, yeah, they're actually there for a reason.
Section 5. Key vocabulary terms. Let's look at language acquisition.
So remember, this isn't just a morality tale. It's an English reader textbook, which means it's heavily focused on building language skills. Let's switch to an analytical lens and see how the text uses incredibly vivid, kinetic verbs to characterize the villain. First up, gobbled. The glossary defines this as eat quickly with noise. The author didn't just say the wolf ate Granny, he gobbled her. That specific verb perfectly captures the aggressive, predatory, chaotic energy of the wolf the second he gets inside that cottage. It just paints such a more frightening, vivid picture for the reader.
Next up, we have croaked, which the glossary defines as to make a low noise as animals do. And yes, that slightly quirky grammar is exactly how it's printed in the textbook. When Riya knocks, the text says, "Oh, how lovely, do come in, my dear," croaked the wolf. This is such a fantastic word choice because it highlights the deception. He's trying so hard to sound sweet and inviting, but his wild, animalistic nature is literally leaking through his voice. A grandmother doesn't croak. It sounds unnatural, and it immediately signals to the reader that something is terribly wrong.
And finally, we have roared, defined as to make a deep sound by a wild animal. The author deliberately saves this word for the exact climax of the story. The disguise is ripped away, the high-pitched voice is gone, and the true beast is unleashed. By stepping young readers through these three dynamic verbs, gobbled, croaked, and roared, the textbook actually gives them a really nuanced understanding of how verbs convey character and drive the action forward. Let's move to our next point and look at how this story builds the reader's environmental vocabulary. The glossary zeroes in on essential world-building nouns. We're talking words like village, forest, basket, cloak, stranger, and cottage. Now, these aren't just random vocabulary words to memorize. They are literally the architectural building blocks of the entire fairy tale genre. By mastering these specific nouns, students aren't just understanding Riya's story. They are being equipped with the language they need to read and write countless other stories set in similar, expansive fantasy worlds.
So, we've seen how effectively this story combines a genuinely thrilling narrative with explicit moral instructions and highly targeted vocabulary. It is a beautifully constructed piece of educational material. But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought on how these classic lessons evolve. Riya's physical forest was full of hidden dangers, masked by very friendly voices. So what you should take away from this is, how does that age-old lesson of don't talk to strangers apply to the digital forests and the online wolves of today? It's a fascinating question to ponder as we figure out how to educate the next generation to navigate their own woods. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep asking great questions about everything you read.